You've been in the Devi community for any amount of time. You've certainly heard of Devvexchange. But what exactly is it? Is it a DEX, a centralized exchange, or something else entirely? Well, that's exactly what this video will clarify. What's happening, guys? My name's Austin, and in the crypto space, the word exchange gets thrown around a lot. But in actuality, most exchanges in the crypto space operate more as brokerages than actual exchanges. See, with centralized exchanges, user deposits are sent to an omnibus wallet in exchange for credits on their centralized platform. You can then trade these credits for whatever other currency you desire. Now, this gives a generally nice user experience, but opens them up to massive counterparty risk in the case of insolvency, and also gives these brokerages the power to do basically anything they want with your funds, as we saw in the catastrophic case of FTX. Now, the other option are decentralized exchanges, which allow for self-custodied swapping of one asset for another. This offers a more secure option, but comes with a steep learning curve, unfavorable trading conditions, and still doesn't fully remove the counterparty risk problem. But nevertheless, blockchain does have massive potential to alleviate or even remove counterparty risk altogether. This isn't a secret, but ask yourself this: if blockchain is such a great solution for exchanging value, and it has the ability to alleviate counterparty risk, then why aren't the world's financial markets trading on chain? Well, the reason is that they haven't had the correct combination of speed, privacy, fraud, theft, and loss protection, technology, the ability to integrate with legacy systems, and full regulatory adherence. That is until now. Let's start with speed. Through our unique sharding mechanism, the network underpinning Devi has been clocked at 8 million cross-shard transactions per second, but can actually scale infinitely. Now, from an on-chain perspective, we don't appear to live in a world where that kind of throughput is even necessary yet. But in the case of stock markets, for example, it wouldn't be uncommon to see millions of transactions happening per minute. So a robust network with infinite scalability is needed. Otherwise, you run the risk of maxing out throughput and halting trading. Now, the next non-negotiable is privacy. We actually enjoy a very high level of privacy in our day-to-day financial transactions. For example, if I went to Starbucks to buy a coffee, it would be terrible if the barista behind the counter could see every purchase I've ever made on my debit card. But in blockchain, isn't that the way that it is? If I send $1 to a friend and he has my account information, he can pull up a block explorer and see every transaction I've ever made through that account. This won't work in regulated financial markets. Conversely, however, the types of privacy that we find with Monero and Zcash also won't work, since they use zero-knowledge proofs and are largely uncrackable. Now, we hold the blocking level patent on a particular kind of privacy on chain, similar to what you'd find with your bank. It's complete privacy, but with auditability. This allows for regulatory compliance while still protecting the rights of every user on the platform. The next non-negotiable is some form of recourse in the case of mistakes, scams, or loss of keys. On traditional Turing-complete networks, everyone knows that once a transaction has been sent, or if a private key is lost, then that's final, and the user is simply out of luck. There's no recourse of any kind. In traditional finance, this type of risk is simply too great, especially taking into account the steep learning curve that blockchain usually has attached to it. With our patented fraud, theft, and loss protection, users on our chain are guarded against sending errors, loss of keys, hacking, and a ton of other mistakes that are all too common amongst the non-crypto native crowd. Think of it like bumper lanes at a bowling alley. We can ensure a seamless experience for the user while protecting them against mistakes they're highly likely to make. Now, when it comes to trading and security, Devvexchange is far above anything else on the market. Our technology enables seamless instant swaps, full self-custody, and mathematically instant settlement, removing the counterparty risk argument once and for all. This all happens at the consensus level of the network, not in smart contracts, adding another layer of security. But what is counterparty risk exactly? Now, every TradFi institution is very aware of and observant of counterparty risk and quite eager for a solution to it. Here's an example. If you were to buy a stock on a brokerage, the funds would leave your account and you'd have the appearance of ownership of that asset, but that's not actually what's happening. Under the hood are clearinghouses matching up anonymous buyers and sellers and ensuring that assets go to where they belong. With these clearinghouses, equities generally settle in T plus 2 days, which is the time of execution plus 2 days. In rare and very highly optimized environments, they might get down to T plus 1. Now, this opens up the brokerage to tremendous float, liquidity allocation, and if something goes wrong and the trades don't settle, then it exposes them to legal as well as financial disaster. Most of the time, this all goes fine. But back in the financial crisis of 2008, our financial infrastructure was almost wiped out due to this and other factors. Now, through our contingent transaction sets and mathematically instant settlement, we have completely solved the counterparty risk issue once and for all. This solves an issue that for TradFi is in the tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. Millions of dollars have been spent by large institutions in search of the exact tech that we have underpinning Devvexchange. Now, traditional finance has been around a long time in the form that we currently know it, which means that there are tons of legacy systems in place. To ask any of them to abandon their way of doing business and the systems that they use to convert to blockchain is an argument that will never be won, because there's simply too much at stake. Due to the network underpinning Devi being coded in C++ and all transactions initiated through a simple REST API, we can connect to any Web 2 application that has API capabilities, which is basically all of them. This removes the need for any retooling and ensures that every system that's currently in place can continue to be used with seamless integration and little to no expense. This single feature of our network removes one of the biggest barriers to entry for many of the world's enterprises. Now, finally, and arguably most important, is regulatory adherence. Every shard in the Devi ecosystem can be completely custom built, allowing us to meet almost any regulation in existence today. This includes GDPR, MiCA, and almost any other governmental regulation worldwide. Now, with Devvexchange, we have the ability to place a shard in each regulatory jurisdiction and custom build it to the specs required by the local government. Then, as users of the exchange KYC, they can then be placed into the shard that corresponds with their location, which makes the governments happy. None of this would be possible, however, without our T1 connector, which is our cross-shard mechanism. This allows us to provide a seamless user experience on the front end while segmenting people based on regulation on the back end. To give an example of how monumental this is, Binance set up multiple different iterations of their website around the world, including Binance US and Binance Jersey. The thinking was that a new site which only served these local populations could be built to the demands of regulation. Unfortunately, what they didn't account for was liquidity. By fragmenting their user base, they also fragmented liquidity. With the lion's share still trading on Binance.com, this meant that Binance US and Binance Jersey gave a less than desirable user experience in their effort to try and comply, and ultimately were met with very little success or even closure. Any one of these features is an absolute game changer, but taken in conjunction, it makes Devvexchange an unstoppable force that'll be allowed to exist in places and ways that blockchain hasn't even dreamed of. We aren't simply building a better DEX. We've solved multi-billion-dollar problems that have thus far prevented the world from coming on chain, and we're the only ones with the technology to do so. My name's Austin. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.